It's no secret that Black people have a complicated relationship with America. The nation that's been built on our backs, that loves our culture but hates the people who've made it. The nation that questions our anger when we're shot down in the streets by the same people who are sworn to protect and serve. The same nation that causes our children to fear for their lives each time they hear a siren in the distance. The same nation that pays us less but expects so much more while using systems to deprive us the same rights as white folk. It reminds me of one of my favorite poets, Langston Hughes. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. We march in the streets demanding justice, a chance to be heard and seen. We speak out when life is taken at the hands of others who fear our existence. Hashtags, t-shirts, sidewalk art quietly scream for us to be heard, but there's another sound many don't hear. It's the sound of flames. A house engulfed in an inferno of trauma and pain. This episode is dedicated to Taylor McFadden, Danielle Holye, and her daughter, Kennedy. I'm sure many of you don't know who they are. There hasn't been any national outrage, marches, hashtags, or meetings at the steps of courthouses demanding change. The pain of these losses, like so many others, have been carried by relatives and close friends, when a national outcry should be the response. Or at the very least, our community should be having a conversation addressing this epidemic of death. This episode takes another look at violence within our community. Why is it so much easier to tolerate when we're killing each other? Would we be this quiet if these crimes were committed by a white person? Our house is on fire, and we need to talk about it. Mr. Blackovation, the host of All Things Black, is here to start this conversation. It will be an honest, transparent dialogue. So if you're easily offended and don't like coarse language, you may want to reconsider listening. But keep in mind, avoidance is also a part of the problem. We're going to talk about the issues going on within the Black community as it relates to violence, but within our own interactions, right? So we were talking earlier about when stuff happens, police brutality, when we see systemic racism, when we see people treating us inappropriately, we do a lot of the things, right? We do the hashtags, we do the marches, we do the boycotts, we do the Black Fridays and all the things. But when the violence is us against us, specifically within relationships, we don't see any of that. So I want to highlight some of those areas on what are we missing here? Like, why is it okay for us to hurt each other, but we get pissed when we see other people doing it? So I'm going to throw that at you first. What, in your viewpoint, do you feel is going on with that?
It's internalized.
Okay.
That's really what you're looking at. You're looking at an internalization of behaviors that we have been accustomed to accepting, right? It's okay to cuss somebody out in the Black community, guys. That's what we do. It's okay to beat the hell out of somebody in the Black community because that's what we do, right? And we've just internalized that to a degree where it's commonplace. So that's really not a big thing. It's really through education. It's really through us really stopping and thinking, what am I doing? You understand what I'm saying? What am I doing? But we don't have time. We don't necessarily have the time to stop to really think about that because there's other things that's going on in our family, in our community, around the world, and we just don't get a chance to really stop and think. What the pandemic did was allow us to stop and think.
Okay.
So now you got to sit back and you got to
Right. But why? Because I'm just confused. So, full transparency, right? I see the violence between men and women, Black men and women, on a regular basis. I
mhm.
just worked a very disturbing murder case where the husband killed his wife in front of their two young sons. And then the case in Texas where the individual killed the mother of his child and then threw the baby in the river. Like, what is going on within our own communities where this is acceptable? Why do I feel it's acceptable? Because no one's talking about it. No one. I'm talking about it because it's my field. It's what I look at. I don't see the outrage. Where's the outrage for the baby? Where's that baby's hashtag? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it okay when we are killing each other, but we get pissed off when other people do it to us? Like, I understand this, okay. Internally, that's kind of what we do, but is it really like, and other communities are not going to stand up for us when they see this because it's a way to keep us marginalized. Like,
Yeah.
why am I
It's
going to
it's
stop this and focus
it's
on
really
this? Because they're doing our job.
yeah, it's really internalized. It's an internalized system of beliefs. You're a nigga and niggas are nothing.
Hmm.
If I continue to see you in that same light,
So
you're a
why
nigga.
are we doing it to ourselves?
Devaluation.
Okay. So that's a very deep-rooted
Devaluation.
issue.
Like I just stated, you're a nigga.
So is that something that we think about ourselves then?
That's correct.
Wow. That's deep. And you're saying so
Niggas have
education
been,
about that is what needs to be addressed.
yes, you're not going to be able to move forward unless you deal with the subject of devaluation in our community.
Mm,
Pimp and hoe culture still exists.
right.
It's packaged in music, film, and television,
Hmm.
and we eat that up. The more you are portrayed as a nigga, right?
Hmm.
Pimp or hoe, and dress the part, that helps in the propagation of devaluation of who you are. So if I'm devalued, I'm going to look through the lens of my devaluation and see you as a devalued person.
Wow.
No matter your accomplishments, no matter your background, no matter your education degree, whatever the case may be, you're still a nigga. If I see you as an inanimate object, I'm going to see myself as an inanimate object.
That's painful even to hear that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like centuries and centuries of programming
That's
have
correct.
put us in the situation of now I see you as my enemy. I see you as my enemy and you are a threat to me. But I love you. Like, how does that work? How can that
What,
coexist?
what
A black man
you,
is to me, statistically.
in this society, yes, against the
Hmm.
structure, but I'm not a threat to you. What I am is an image that's stuck in my head or their head
Hmm.
of what a black man is or has been portrayed as in this society. I'm a nigga.
Hmm.
So niggas have no value unless the nigga has attached themselves to things that are valuable, i.e., Jordans,
Hmm.
i.e., gold chains and jewelry, i.e., even a degree. So it's something that you have to look at in your own mind's eye and circumstance and begin to question it. Why am I like this? Why do I like hoe and pimp culture?
Right.
Why do I like my women undressed? Why do the women like themselves undressed?
Hmm.
Who gave you that picture? Because historically, when you go and you look at us, we've always been portrayed as the ham bones, the shines, the coons, the sapphires,
Hmm.
right? The sexually promiscuous and perverse black woman. And that is an age old image that's been portrayed over and repackaged and over again to the point when we don't even see it, but we
Right.
celebrate it. We celebrate the culture that was given to us that's not necessarily our culture. We're given that culture. So it really starts with devaluation. Again, I can have a degree, but I can be a thought.
Yeah, that is true. And depending on what your degree's in, you might get more attention for the thought status, right? So okay, I have a question then. As a black man in this society, if you could ask a question specifically focused on the two cases I just brought about to the males who committed those atrocities, what would you ask them? Because I'll sit here as a female and I'm wondering what happened to you? What happened to you that you felt the need to take a gun to the mother of your children, and kill her in front of them? What happened to you that you devalued life so much that you threw your own baby into a river? Like, we have a problem internally. And so
But
that
you
would be
just
my
answered it.
question. Huh?
You just answered it.
We have a problem? Devaluation. And the only way to fix that is education, you're saying?
Well, not just education, but the kind of education that's going to be able to allow you to see yourself through a different lens.
Okay. But you have to
See, I
want
can't
that,
keep.
right?
Well, you have to want it, and then you have to separate yourself from and divorce yourself from these images.
Now you're talking about hitting in the money area, though, because that's what sells, right?
It may sell, but the thing you got to start thinking about is how does this translate to the next generation? How does this look to the next? See, my thing is this: I know I'm an extension of a community.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start to think about hyper individualism over the community, that's when it becomes a problem. It becomes an issue. It's me. I'm different from them. I'm special. I don't have a connection to them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start getting into problems.
But do you think our community sees that we have a problem, though? Because that's a bigger question.
We do.
You think so?
Yes.
So why aren't we doing anything? Why aren't we doing enough?
Hopelessness.
Wow. Sorry, I had to absorb that. That is sad.
Hopelessness and the age-old willingness to continue down the path of, dare I say it, integration. Integration is not your friend.
So why is it so easy? And it might go back to the being devalued. But if I'm devalued enough to kill my partner,
Mm-hmm.
but I will still march at a police brutality rally,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a part of being devalued, right? So why is it okay for one thing and not the other? If I'm devalued with the cops or with my
Well,
spouse. So what's
well,
the
most of
difference?
us know where our trauma truly stems from.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us know that. So it's become easier to point the finger at white supremacy and racism instead of saying
Got you. Okay.
me. So as long as the white man is in the way, you're not necessarily going to fix the issue.
Ooh.
So he has to be separated and you have to be separated in order for us to fully start to heal and fix the problem.
Got you. It's easier to
That's the hard
point the
part.
finger. Okay. Okay.
That's the hard part. Because for the most part, a lot of us don't want to separate. Not even mentally.
Mm-hmm. Because like you said, it's easier to point the finger at that versus pointing the finger at yourself.
That's correct.
So it's
So it
really an
takes a lot.
individualized thing.
Yeah, it takes a lot to look in the mirror and say, I was the one that bought that gun. I was the one that pulled the trigger. I was the one that purchased the bullets. I was the one that had the temper. I was the one that did all of this. It's difficult to do that.
Okay.
It's difficult sometimes to do that, to really look in the mirror and say,
Is there anything in your opinion that you think we can do though as a community to start putting the spotlight on some of these real issues? Because like you said, we're not going to remove the white person. We're not going to remove that viewpoint and everything else. We have
We
to do
can,
that.
but it starts. We can, but it starts here.
Okay.
See, our problem is that we've lent too much of our power to the external force,
Mm-hmm.
which is white folk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. You got to start here first. So once you begin to clean this up,
Just think about it. What if the tables were turned? What if it was a white person who shot that lady and threw the baby into the
we'd be
water?
pissed. We'd be
Yes.
pissed.
Oh, could you imagine?
We'd be thoroughly upset. But again, our problem is that we've been conditioned to accept a lot of the stuff that's coming from us.
Right.
That's the problem. We've been conditioned to accept that behavior. So even in friendship, oh, that's my nigga.
Right.
You get on the phone with your girlfriends. What's up, bitch?
Right. And it's okay. And it's okay. And then you run into somebody who has an issue with those words. They're looked at, they're ostracized, or they're thought of as whatever. But no, it's because they have a value and respect for themselves that they're not going to allow you to call them that.
And then you looked at funny.
Right. Right.
But you got to wake up every day
Mm-hmm.
with the mindset to say, that's not me. I disassociate myself with these ideas and these behaviors. I'm going to try every day to try to do better. And that's what you do. But it does start with a bit of education,
Mm-hmm.
knowing who you are, past, present, and future. Our problem is we stuck in the past and relish in the present.
Right.
Because the hopelessness part is where we don't see a future.
And
See, niggas is gonna be niggas, it's gonna be niggas, it's gonna be niggas, and we believe we'll never get out of this particular situation because we've been in it so long. And then we put too much emphasis on white people changing. It's not about white people changing.
Right.
It's about us.
Exactly. But you feel that we know that kind of as a whole, that we are the ones who really need to do the change.
Yes.
And we're not because of the hopelessness.
Partially.
Well, that.
Partially.
What can change that hopelessness, though? I mean, on a grand scale, do we need a great speaker to step up? Because I mean, humans
No, that's
by
already
nature
been.
are
No, that's already
followers.
been done. That's already been done. See again. Our problem is that we always see. I hear conversations consistently going with people talking about we have no more leaders,
Mm-hmm.
or we're always going back into the past. If it's trying to not necessarily follow what those leaders did, we
Mm-hmm.
just want to relish in what they talked about. Our problem is we talk too much and there's not enough action.
Yes.
You're not supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, but you consistently do it anyway.
Right.
And then you want fair treatment, right? Like I
Right.
was telling somebody a couple of months ago, that black people, we fund our own oppression.
Wow.
Nike mistreats you. Nike calls you a nigga. Nike does X, Y, and Z. But as soon as them Jordans come out, them retros come out, what do you do? Stand in line for 2 hours.
Right.
The beauty stores owned by Asians mistreat black women. Black men go to the defense of black women in that regards and tell black women to not shop at the store. Black women tell black men, kiss my ass. I need my lace front or whatever.
Mm-hmm. We got a problem.
Yes, we do.
We have a problem, and that's why I titled this "Our House is on Fire." It's
Mm-hmm.
we're so focused of what's going on externally.
Yeah.
Knowing that the work has to be done internally as our individuals, but as a community as a whole. I don't know. I'm looking at the younger generation, and I don't know. I don't want to say I'm sitting in that space of hopelessness, but I just really don't see the drive or the initiative to make any change.
No, because we're still holding on to the old idea. The old idea is that this country is going to change. We're going to become more acceptable to the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
The mainstream is going to put us in position for black people to do better. And we're still waiting on that great white hope to come in and do that. And that has not happened yet.
Right.
We're still holding on to the idea of inclusion of everybody
Mm-hmm.
but ourselves.
So
You don't want to
then,
be inclusive. You don't want to be inclusive with your brother and sister, right?
right.
But you'll sit at a table with somebody else with a varying opinion and call that person your brother or your sister.
That is true.
And will tolerate their bullshit, but you won't tolerate your sister's bullshit. That's what I'm saying. Originally, when it started out, I said we devalue each other.
Right.
And the more we devalue each other is where the problem intensifies. Case in point, black man has a restaurant in Houston, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
black owned, wants to serve the community, made it upscale. Black women come in, hears music in the restaurant, maybe shouldn't have been played, maybe not. Take it upon themselves to get on tables and furniture from said black man and his establishment to begin to start twerking
Wow.
and literally showing their behind.
Wow.
He tells them 3 times to not do that and not stand on the furniture. It's not theirs. He has to pay for that.
Right.
3 times he told him. The 3rd time, he gets a little irate and begins to cuss. Tells him you can get the fuck out if you don't like it.
Right.
Now you have his attention. Now he has your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But he told you twice before the 3rd time before he cussed. And you devalued him as a black man, even though he was trying to do something for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, who is he?
Because you have to ask yourself, would they have done the same thing if it was a white-owned establishment? Oh boy.
Bingo.
I don't know.
We don't value each other.
And that's sad.
Well, it
it's
is
also a
sad.
way to
The
keep
reason
us
it's sad,
separated.
yeah, the reason it's sad though is because we've already had years of people telling us that we're better than what we are. We already had years of people telling us that we're not niggas. We've had that.
So what, in your opinion, I know we said education and kind of us doing the work to look at ourselves individually, but how likely is that to happen?
It's going to happen.
You think? You're
Yes.
optimistic?
Yes.
I'm so
For
not
2
optimistic.
reasons.
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
People either change voluntarily or involuntarily.
Okay.
The reason you change voluntarily is because you see a problem and you want to fix it. The involuntary change comes from extenuating circumstances or events that put you in a situation that makes you bow to your knees for change.
Ooh.
So the old folks put it like this. You either gonna change willingly or unwillingly. So you either gonna change by acceptance or you're gonna change by force. Bluntly, they said, if you don't change, I'm gonna make you change by an ass whooping.
Right.
So an ass whooping is on the way.
Okay, here's another question for you. A lot of individuals that I've spoken to have spoken about having communities or societies run by us, you know what I'm saying, like leadership, financial, and everything else. But when we look at the issues that we have been talking about today, is that even an option where something like that could be a success if we are so hopeless and devalue one another?
No. So there's some that have already begun to work.
Okay.
There's some that's already begun to work and have been doing it and are trying to do it. And there's more coming along saying this is the standard that we need to start exercising. We need to start doing this. The others are sitting back, either waiting to see what's going to happen, waiting to see when it fails or if it fails. And just in case, they have a foot in the other door if it doesn't work out. And some just don't want to come.
Right. And there's the ones who don't want to come. Are those is that kind of the space where there's that devalued, or they just don't feel it's going to be successful?
Well, I mean, all of us are learning to attempt to try to value ourselves. We're trying that. So one of the things I didn't mention was the fact that we are in environments and in circumstances contribute to the onward idea that you're nothing.
Right.
And when we don't practice, which again is practice, when we don't practice valuing each other, because you got to think about it. The world has beat you down. The world has told you good. The world has said you're not going to accomplish much. The world says you're a deadbeat dad. The world says you're a single mother. The world says you're independent. You're frozen. You'll never have a man. And this goes into your psyche on a daily basis. You don't even get a chance to breathe.
Right.
So again, somebody has to come in as an outside force to begin to teach you the value of yourself. And then when they begin to teach you, you can't just leave it where it is. You got to start feeding on it. The same way you feed on the trifling music, Real Housewives of Atlanta, the same way you feed on that is the same way you got to feed on the positive stuff.
Okay.
That is a portion of our issue. Because we get up on a daily basis, and I'm not condemning anybody. I'm just saying this is our lifestyle.
Right.
Smoke a blunt, drink alcohol, look for some man or some woman to be predatory over, right? Looking for a meal, some help, trying to swindle somebody. So our lifestyle is that of a predator and savage. And the reason I say savage is because we're living on a lower plane of existence. Because all of those things I just mentioned prior, or just a couple of minutes ago, or seconds ago, or whatever, that's how animals operate. Eat, drink, sex. Eat, drink, sex. Eat, drink, sex. And that's our level of existence in these communities that we were fostered into. So it's going to take the right kind of knowledge along with the practice or the practical application of that. So when I see you, I don't say bitch, I say sis, because we have a connection. We have a very unique connection. If you think about it, you've gone through what I've gone through in this country, although the experience may be a little bit different. Male, female, right? You're going to get it, but you're not going to get it like I'm going to get it.
Right.
And in certain areas, you're going to get it worse than I'm going to get it. Okay. So, but we have a very unique experience. Not only that, we're tied to a very unique experience from our grandmother, grandfather, great-grand, all of that. Very unique experience. Nobody's gone through the experience that Black people have gone through in this country.
Right.
So that makes us very unique. So I have to now look at you. Yeah, so now I have to look at you as not a combatant, not an enemy, but as somebody that is soldiering on the field like me.
Right.
Only in a different, maybe in a different way of struggling with it, but a comrade no less.
Right.
Not an enemy combatant.
Exactly. We're not a threat. We should not
No.
be looked at as a threat.
And we should not be, and that's the thing. So here's part of the problem too. How we talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So as you and I are having a conversation, and we may be able to bring up some very unique experiences in terms of how you have been treated as a Black woman
Mm-hmm.
in this society, in our community. And I can say the same. But it's how we talk about those experiences. I don't make a blanket statement and say all Black women are X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because I don't know all Black women.
Exactly. Yes.
Same
That's
thing
a
with
pet
Black
peeve
men.
of mine. That's a pet peeve of mine. I can't
Yeah,
stand
same thing with Black men.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make a blanket statement and say all Black men.
Right.
You don't know all Black men.
Right.
So how you begin to address how we communicate is a very big issue. Because in the communication can also be conflict resolution.
Exactly.
If we learn how to communicate effectively.
Exactly.
That's our biggest thing. We don't know. So one of the things that was robbed from us was our ability to read.
Mm-hmm.
So in reading, there's reading comprehension and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Okay. So if I cannot comprehend, or my comprehension level is that of a fourth grader, fifth grader, whatever the case may be, and when you're trying to have a conversation with me, I don't stop to think about what it is that you're really saying, everything's going to get lost in translation.
Right.
Everything's going to get lost in translation. So even though you might be telling me something good for me, if I can't comprehend what it is that you're trying to say, I might take it as an attack.
Right.
And again, you got to remember the circumstances that we're in, the environment that we're in. Everybody is always saying something to us that seems negative or that is negative. That is negative.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always looking for the next. We're always looking for the next trauma or the next pain that is going to come our way or be inflicted upon us.
Yes.
So that's why you see us most of the time, especially Black men, we got a grit on our face. Like, I'm ready. Black women do it too.
Yeah, we do.
There's a grit. Yeah, okay, what's I'm ready for you. What's next? Because we've never been given an opportunity to fully heal. Never.
And like now, there's even one of my clients yesterday was just saying how, him and his wife are having issues, and he knows he needs to get into therapy, but the challenge of doing that because of just the whole stigma. And, to be honest, some of the stuff that was being told during the argument was probably not helpful. But if we are not addressing or even knowing that, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this for myself, but the barriers in between the conceptualizing it mentally and actually doing it pushes people back as well. So it's like all these different segments of the population, because there's going to be people who might hear this and be like, whatever, I'm still going to drink, I'm still going to do whatever, I'm still going to.
Yeah, but, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I told myself I would be vulnerable today about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am now seeking therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm doing that is for, of course, me, because you come to a realization that all of the things that you have gone through, you've never fully addressed to try to get some kind of management over your life and those circumstances that you went through. We just push through it. Black folks, we're going to push through it. We're going to call on Jesus or go to church or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to push through it. Although I'm not against calling on Jesus, I am saying that you should call on Jesus in addition to
Right.
getting mental health,
Right.
getting therapy, clinical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter how much you call on to God, call on Jesus, whatever, that is not going to be a Band-Aid for a deep wound that was inflicted on you sometimes at a young age. Because you got to remember, some of us were babies
Yes.
that went through very traumatic experiences, and we didn't really know Jesus until 5, 6 years old.
Right.
So what do you do before that? You bury it till it becomes a problem. I used to tell people, I no longer tell people this anymore because I get sick of people lying.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell them is this: all of us are sick in this country. There's no way for us not to be sick in this country because of the institutions that were brought about in this country, which was the major institution was white supremacy and racism. We're carrying our mothers and fathers' trauma in our veins,
Yes.
in our lifeblood. So if you think that you are a sane individual in a world of insanity, and you tell that bold-faced lie to me, I really don't want nothing to do with you.
Right.
Because we're sick. And there's nothing wrong with saying we're sick. Again, I don't care how articulate you are, how pretty you are. I don't care about none of that. If you look at where people are currently at right now,
Mm-hmm.
look at the over excess and excess of hypersexualization in the community.
Yes.
Do you think that's sanity?
It's absolutely not.
Okay. That is insanity. That is an imbalance. When a person sexualizes themselves to the degree that that's all they can think about, that's all they can do, that becomes the activity, and you sink to a level of depravity, that you normally as a sane person wouldn't do, you insane, Chief. There's an
So,
imbalance.
what about the pushback would be? Because I run into that a lot where I'm like, okay, you need to make different life changes, different lifestyles, but that's what's paying the bills. Behaving like that or doing those actions or doing that behavior, that's what's paying the bills. And that's what's important to me, not what you're saying about the whole community, because I'm focused on me and my livelihood.
If the money is the focal point, then you've already sunk. You're gone.
Okay.
Because when you start talking about the bag, I got to get the bag. What are you getting the bag for?
True.
What is your motivation for getting the bag? If your motivation for getting the bag is to buy a Birkin bag at $15,000 so you can actually front and flaunt out in front of everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
you're done. If your motivation for getting the bag takes you through avenues that you would never normally have gone, i.e., snorting cocaine,
Mm-hmm.
having all kinds of group sex with people. See, because what happens is the chasing the bag is another level of devaluation. Because when one chases the bag, especially in areas or avenues that you would normally chase the bag, when you do that, there's a degree of shame that you have to come from up under.
Right.
And it's the shame that has been checking us and keeping us in place. But once the shame is removed, then that means the level of depravity is going to increase. And there's no shame.
Right.
So again, I'm not condemning, but I'm saying this is for thought. Because we all do it. Shame has been removed from the people. The bag has become the centerpiece of life.
Mm-hmm.
The bag is going to give me creature comforts. The bag is going to cure all my problems. The bag is going to take away my anxiety. The bag is going to take away all my woes and sorrows. The bag. Inanimate object that its true value is gotten from people.
Right. Right.
The bag has no value unless we give it value.
That is true. That is true.
So you're bowing down and worshiping the bag, and the bag is making you do everything that you normally would not have done. before.
It looks like we have a lot
Yeah,
of work to do.
it's a lot. But see, yes and yes, and it's because there's so many conflicting ideologies out there. There's so many varying opinions and viewpoints out there that everything is now muddled, right? It's muddy. It's muddy. Like people saying, I'm going to go the direction I think is best for me. That's cool, but to what degree?
To what degree?
To what end?
Right.
If I got to give up my virtue, if I have to give up my chastity, if I have to give up my integrity, if I got to give up everything that makes me human, then I really can't sit back and ask people for respect.
Right. Exactly. And there's a verse similar to that. I was brought up Catholic. I'm not really good on my Bible verses, but I do know there's a verse about what is it a man to gain
The whole world.
and to lose his soul?
Lose it.
So it's definitely something that we all need to think about. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be individuals listening to this episode and it's going to hit different trigger points, which it should, because we have a problem. Like we can't sit here and say that we don't. I really feel as much energy when we see other people hurt us, we should have that same energy when we're doing it to ourselves. So I'm ecstatic and I'm very thankful that you came to talk about this topic. I feel that this is dialogue that needs to be done and not just within podcasts, because we already know from the podcast reports, this is not the type of podcast that our people listen to. We're not entertainment. We're not music. We're not comedy. That was a concern for me too. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I mean, there's some areas that we as a group, we as a people have to address. If we're honest about all Black Lives Matter, it's everybody's lives, not just the ones being taken from people who don't look like us. It's also about the ones being taken from our spouses, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, sisters, brothers. Like all of us matter, not just depending on who was the one who hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know. I'm gonna have to process a lot of this information. I think the biggest thing that stood out for me though is when you said the hopelessness. In totality, there's a collective hopelessness that we have, and that's playing a role in some of the stuff that we're seeing, and that's a heavy thing to sit with.
Yeah, most certainly. And let me say this because I don't know if we're going to end the recording or the broadcast or whatever, but I was invited to speak on another podcast coming up this Thursday. And I was just thinking about some of the things I was going to say, and I would love to introduce some of those thoughts here, if allowed.
Absolutely.
I believe the subject was going to be over Black relationships. And some of the things that I was going to say was this. We can't talk about fixing Black relationships first without therapy, which we mentioned earlier, and second, without getting a major control over our sexual undisciplined behavior.
Talk about it.
You're not going to fix Black relationships or Black family without first therapy, and then two, without getting control over our undisciplined sexual habits. I hear too many people talk about the reason that the Black community is the state that it's in is because of single, Black men making babies and running away. That's part of it, absolutely. Or the opposite, the Black community is in shambles because you got too many Black single mothers out here doing X, Y, and Z. But how about you think about it in this regard? Even though we both know, or all of us know, that these are two very valid points, why haven't we stopped having sex yet? Why haven't we stopped the unbridled sex that we're having with one another that produces these situations. Fatherless homes with a lot of black men are an issue, but yet you still are having sex with a lot of these black men and now other ethnicities of men. Same thing with black men. Single motherhood is an issue in the black community, but yet and still you will go out, find a black woman, whether she's single or even a mother, and you'll delight yourself in having sex with her. Sometimes protected, other times not protected. This is a scourge in our community that's also very problematic, but nobody is talking about that part of it because of the gratification that you get from an orgasm.
There you go.
And I get it. It's a natural thing. But until we begin to address the issue of the rampant sexual behavior in our community, we're not going to fix or heal our relationships.
And let's throw a whole nother layer to that. Like the number, and we're not really hearing much about it right now, but just the amount of HIV that's in our population that no one's talking about. That kind of is in the same vein of what you're speaking of. And it's just another way to keep us in this space that we're in. No one's going to fight for us like we're going to fight for us. Because it doesn't impact them like that. You can have a very strong, supporting white group of friends, but at the end of the day, they're not us. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have the same struggle, and no one's going to understand it more than we will. Like you said, we're on the same team. We need to start acting like it. We need to start acting. I am not your enemy. You are not my enemy. If anything, coming together in trying to move past some of these programmed thought processes is what we need to do. But I think money, sex, all of that stuff is just so tempting. But screw what you're saying. It's all
a real
about me.
distraction. It's a real distraction. And one of the things I think we need to start to be very transparent about is the fact that we are predatory one towards the other. A lot of times men are seen as predatory. And let's be honest, a lot of times we are out there being very predatory, but women can be very predatory as well, but that's never been addressed either. It's never been addressed. So we're in a we put ourselves in environments and we become predatory one towards the other to see if one can one up the other or get whatever they want out of the person. And then we move on to the next predator, to the next prey. So we got to stop being predatory in our relationships.
Yes.
Right. And be transparent about what it is that you're really seeking and what you want. Because see, the thing about it is once you're very deliberate and very forthcoming about what it is you're looking for in a relationship and don't back down from that, you'll solve a lot of your own problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll solve a lot of your own problems. You won't have the heartaches that you will encounter if you continue the course that you're traveling right now. That don't mean you be disrespectful, because I don't like that either. If a man approaches you, I don't like either side. When a man approaches you, because I was going to talk about this at one point too, when a man approaches you and he asks, are you single, whatever the case may be, as a man, the one thing that you should do, once she addresses and answers your question, move on. Leave her alone. Don't ask her, can you have friends? Or your man don't want you to do X, Y, and Z. Leave her alone.
Yes,
let
please.
it be.
And thank you.
You're interfering with a whole process. Here's a woman that may truly adore and love the man that she's currently with. And like a snake, you interfere in that process by psychologically tricking her to make her think outside of that whole relationship. Oh, you can't have friends? See, that's a trick. Leave her alone, Chief. Let her go. Once she says, I'm not interested, move on. Move on, let her go. You'll solve a lot of problems. You won't, if you, because again, if you keep pressing her and she's already told you no, then you're going to get a more aggressive stance from her because now you're just being annoying, you're being triggering,
And
you're not
disrespectful.
listening, you're being disrespectful. Now
Mm-hmm.
there's a different response. Now that means now you got to get a little aggressive because your
Yes.
ego's been bruised,
Yes.
which is causing a lot of what's going on right now with a lot of these gentlemen. Well, not I shouldn't say gentlemen. With a lot of these guys out here, they become upset when they don't get the attention that they think they should get from a lot of these women. If she says no, let her go.
Right. There's
Peace.
cases where and this happened a couple years ago, where she turned down his advances and he ended up killing her.
Right.
What kind of danger? And again, it goes through that whole psychological aspect of, well, why aren't you more approachable? Blah, blah, blah. Why don't, you know what? Maybe I don't do all that and seem approachable because it's a defense mechanism because I
Yes.
don't know what you're bringing towards me.
Correct.
And we have to have that conversation too.
Yeah, we definitely got to have that conversation because at this point, our neighborhood there should be a measure of peace in our neighborhoods. There should be a measure of peace. Leave the woman alone if she says that she is unavailable. Let her go about her business. Thank you. Sorry for whatever. And go on about your business. Women.
And the same too for the women.
That's
Because I think
correct.
that's where you're coming to next. The same
That's
too for the
correct.
women.
Women, stop going after these men because they look a certain way and you do not know how to distinguish between a man of good character because you want to be excited and thrill seeking 100% of the time. You want to be on 100% of the time. Because let's be honest, a lot of the relationships that a lot of women have gotten into, especially with the bad boys, have resulted in just that. Bad relationships, bad accidents that have happened because you wanted to thrill seek and think that you saw the image of a man because he was a bad boy. We got to stop it because it's not working. It's not working.
No, it's not.
And that's the whole thing. So the question has to become, why do you want a relationship? Why do you want to be in a relationship? Why do you want a relationship? And what benefit will you get out of the relationship, and what will the other person benefit from you in that relationship? Mm-hmm. So if you're not serious about the business of the relationship, then I would say don't get into it. Don't get into it for fun, because the one thing that's going to end up happening is when you get into the fun space and your little energy is broken down and all that kind of stuff, sex is going to enter the picture. Once the sex enters the picture, it's over. You're not going to recover from that. It's going to take a while. You're not going to recover from that.
It gets messy.
It gets very messy. So be intentional. Be very intentional about that. And I think at this point,
that was your podcast that you were on. That was one of the first ones you were on with us about being intentional. You got to
be very intentional. And I'll say this at this point of the game. I'm gonna say this to the men that may be listening to this. I think it's high time that a lot of us as men be very intentional now in the day and time that we live in, with all these different talking points and these different things that are coming out of a lot of the female think tanks. And the reason I say that is because when you start to develop a sense of spirituality and a sense of connection outside of the external forces that are in your space, you start to really reflect. And one of the things that comes to mind, like you said, you're a Catholic. Gotcha. So, but you have that background, and I have a background of being Baptist. But every now and then I pick up the scriptures, or I'll go listen to something that will enlighten me spiritually. And listen at this. I don't know if you're going to think this is deep or not, but listen at this. So a lot of the scripture says that before God makes his choice of a messenger, a sage, prophet, whatever, he does a deep search, right? He searches the hearts of men, and he really does it deep search before he makes any kind of decision on where to place his message for a messenger or a sage or a prophet, correct?
Correct.
All right. The male has the life germ, which is called sperm.
Mm-hmm.
The sperm or the life germ is like a messenger. It has within it the life or the DNA to spark life once it meets with the egg. So we as men, if we are to be like, or if we are to be recognized in the image of God, has to do the same thing. We have to thoroughly search that woman, investigate that woman, so that we could put our seed or message in her to get maximum benefit. Because God, when he actually raises a messenger or prophet or sage, he knows what's in the messenger, prophet, or sage before the messenger does. And he knows that the messenger, prophet, or sage is going to get maximum benefit out of his message. That's the same thing men should be doing in this stage of the game before choosing a woman or a wife.
Right.
You got to search thoroughly to get maximum benefit out of that woman. And too often, what we have done and have been trained to do as men is to look at a woman very externally and want her a lot of times for pleasure. We kind of want her a lot of times for just pleasure. But her being a very serious creation of God, and that could really maximize the message that we carry. We don't sit back and choose the way that we should be choosing, which is actually a blueprint that's been laid out to show us really how to do it. But we don't have that right now. We don't have that. And I think that in and of itself would help us along the way and would actually help to save and to secure a lot of women from heartache, displeasure, and everything else. Because now we're not running through a gamut of women to finally get to a place where we find the one after 15, 20, 25, 30 women that we've ruined to finally get to a place where we're saying, okay, I finally found that one. It's just a maturity thing.
Exactly.
That I think that we need to all start to develop right now and all get on and all be on that level in order for us to start really taking care of our community and really seeing our community a lot different than what it is. Trash in, trash out.
Yes.
Garbage in, garbage out. And that's really the mindset that we should start evolving on. And a lot of the issues that we currently have, we probably wouldn't even have them if we just start to think a little bit different.
Practice the pause, people. Practice the pause. Take a moment and not just react. You have to put some thought behind what's the return on investment. And I hate to make it sound so business because people always come at me where you can't look at relationships like business. I can. I would not have a business being ran next to a partner who I didn't trust, who was taking away from the business, who was bringing issues into the business. Like, my life is my business. And if you're not adding to it, then you're taking away. And I've worked too hard to maintain where I'm at to allow somebody to disrupt my peace. So definitely, like you said, you have to be intentional and not go through the 20, 30 people. Because honestly, if a dude coming at me like that, I don't want that. Yeah. There's too much stuff out there. Yeah. I don't know how many crazy exes you have. I don't know how much what you might got going on in your body. I don't know. Intentional.
Yeah, but again, it's just the way we've been taught. See, it's a teaching. And once we begin to unlearn that behavior, that mindset, that teaching, then you'll see things a little bit different. But right now, everything is a teaching. Again, we compound that because we keep feeding from the same damn bowl.
Yes, exactly.
That's the problem. Exactly. I understand you want the excitement. Everything else is boring. Man, I'm not going to be able to get out there and show my body and wear this particular type of dress to get the attention that I normally get. It's time out for that right now.
Right.
It's really time out for that. What's more important? You being worshiped because of how you look and how your body is shaped, which is short term,
Mm-hmm.
or you getting together with somebody that somewhat matches your energy, that can complement your gifts and talents, right? And then you
Yes.
go out for the future, solidifying your family and your lineage, and being able to pass that down. What's
Right.
more important? Is it the short term for you to be able to live your life a certain way and not have anybody tell you what to do? Because I'm telling you, when you start to get a little bit older, these things are going to start to come to your mind, and you're going to say, "I wasted too much time."
Right.
You're going to say, "I wasted too much time." And then the only thing that's going to be left, which I see all too often, the only thing that's going to be left is the fact that you're going to end up trying to relive your old life, your 20s, your 30s,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're 50, 60, and 70 years old trying to
Yep.
relive your 20s.
Yep. That's
That's
right.
the only thing that's going to be left.
That's right. Because you can't get time back.
Nope.
Time is non-renewable. Once you
It,
spent it, there's no refund policy.
it's done.
It's done. It's
It's
done.
done. So, yeah, so I know I said quite a bit. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So go ahead and tell everybody where to find you in all the new wonderful things you got going on.
Yes, my name is Daryl, better known as Mr. Blackovation. I am the host and producer of the All Things Black podcast, which you can find on just about any streaming platform: Apple, Spotify, Radio Public, all the normal ones. And I'm also an audio engineer. What's coming up right now is, of course, I'm revamping the show. I'm going to introduce some more production value into the show. And I'm also with the C4 Challenge, or the Content Creators of Color 30-Day Challenge, which is the second challenge from the one that was done last year, I believe. And I got some content going up there. It's not my original content, but it is content that I think is valuable, so that when you go listen to it, people will be able to think. Because I think right now what's most important is that we begin to think and stop, reacting so much, and stop living in fantasy worlds and stuff like that, right? We got time to party, but right now I think it's a lot of work that needs to be done in our community, and we got to get out of the revelry and the party mode in order to get to the real work. And so I would say minimize your party, if not at all, stop the partying because it's a distraction, and really begin the real work and trying to, heal yourself. Because once you heal yourself, you're going to be able to heal the community, because you're a part in
Exactly.
that community. And the more stronger the chain you are, the link in the chain you are, the stronger the community is going to be. But that's me in a nutshell. There's a lot more, but I would just say that much.
Absolutely. And as I tell people I work with all the time, especially couples, when you're looking at a group, they're only as healthy as the sickest person there. So
Agree.
that's when you look at it that way, we really have some work that we have to do. So thank you for all the knowledge that you came in with. And I'm hoping that not somebody, but people listen to this and you know what, light bulb moment, because we got to do some work. We got to do some work. The house is on fire. Like, we really got to do some work. We need to get just as fired up as we are when a cop kills us as it is when somebody that we love does the same thing. So,
Yeah, and I'll end on this. I love everything that you said, and thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. I'm looking forward to having a lot more, because again, these kind of conversations are very therapeutic and very healing to myself. Just being able to listen to myself and listen to you, being able to just go back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Because that what goes out will come back. It'll come right back in. But like I said earlier, for me personally, I am taking a step towards therapy, clinical therapy, to try to release myself from a lot of my old traumas, which I tried to bury. And I think right now at this point, especially for a lot of us as men, men are going through a shift right now,
I agree.
and we're not able to necessarily go with where the wave is going, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the wave necessarily is a good thing either. I'm not saying that, but there is a shift that's taking place, and for the most part, men are somewhat asking the questions: Am I relevant? Am I obsolete? Where do I stand? And because a lot of the things that men were accustomed to doing as men, a lot of that's being taken away from men now. So we got to find a way to cope with that, or we have to build a community in which we can start back being the men that we want to be. right? So it's a big shift. And I think part of what's going to help us is we got to sit down and begin to talk to somebody. I know it's a thing that it's not easy to do because you're a man and how society will view you and how you think people might view you in terms of being weak and all this other kind of stuff. But if you want to kind of come to grips with what's going on with you mentally, spiritually, and physically, I would say seek out somebody that will definitely be able to help you along that path so you can release a lot of this. And we're not having situations like Michelle was talking about earlier, where a husband murdered his whole family and another one threw his child in the river and stuff like that. We don't need that. We don't need that. And as black men, we definitely don't need that stigma, that arrow on our back. We got enough going on. So let's begin to heal.
And we need y'all. And that's the thing. And that might be a conversation for another episode about the black female being all masculine. When our men are wounded, when you're wounded, you can't be that strong black man that we need you to be.
Say that part.
So we can relax in our femininity. And it's because we need y'all to get the help that y'all need. So then we feel safe enough to be that feminine energy that you all need. But right now we have so much wounding. And it's just like a jack in the box. You think you can push it down. One occurrence or one situation happens and it's all in your face.
Yes.
So you either work on it at your speed by seeking the help, or it's going to work on you and come out when you least expect it.
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct. I bear witness to that. But yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I didn't think it was going to go this direction, but man.
With us talking, we have no idea where we end up, but it's always good. It's always good.
It's always good.
Again, we want to thank Daryl, also known as Mr. Blackovation, for coming to Wonderland to have this conversation. Such an important conversation that we need to have and continue to have. As I said earlier, this episode is dedicated to Taylor, Danielle, and Kennedy, who lost their lives senselessly due to domestic violence. If you feel you are or someone that you could be a victim or is struggling in a relationship with abusive behaviors, know that there's help. You can reach out to the domestic violence hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can go to their website, thehotline.org, where you can chat live 24/7, or you can even send them the text on your phone. Start texting the word START, START, to 88788. There's help. Please don't let your family member or yourself become another statistic as we work to heal our community and save lives.